unnecessary argument, every toxic relationship, every expectation of approval, every old regret asks for a piece of your life. The more you give away, the less remains for your own growth. Today we will explore why detachment is not about becoming cold or emotionless. It is about becoming wise. It is about learning to preserve your inner world so that nothing outside of you can steal your balance. When you master this, peace no longer depends on people, circumstances, or outcomes. It becomes your natural state. Every person longs for peace, yet very few are willing to protect it. Instead, they sacrifice it every day for things that offer no lasting value. They trade calmness for unnecessary arguments, sleep for endless worries, confidence for other people's opinions, and happiness for relationships that continuously drain them. Then they wonder why they feel exhausted even when nothing physically demanding has happened. The greatest thief of energy is not hard work. It is emotional attachment to things that constantly disturb the mind. Look carefully at your own life. How much of your suffering comes from reality and how much comes from holding on? Holding on to an apology that never arrived. Holding on to someone who already walked away. Holding on to expectations that life was supposed to be different. Holding on to the need to be understood by everyone. Every attachment becomes another chain around your mind. You believe you are carrying it, but eventually it begins carrying you. Many people misunderstand detachment. They think it means not caring. They imagine a detached person as someone without emotions or compassion. This is far from the truth. Detachment is not the absence of love. It is the absence of unhealthy dependence. You can love deeply without losing yourself. You can care without sacrificing your peace. You can give without expecting anything in return. True strength appears when your happiness no longer depends on whether others behave the way you want them to. Imagine your mind as a quiet lake. Every unnecessary attachment is another stone thrown into the water. One stone may seem small, but hundreds of stones create endless waves. You cannot see your peace is more valuable than any attachment clearly, because the surface never becomes still. The problem is not the lake. The problem is what keeps disturbing it. Peace is not something you need to create. Peace already exists beneath the chaos. Remove the disturbances and clarity naturally returns. People often fear letting go because they mistake familiarity for safety. Clears, throat, even painful situations become comfortable simply because they are known. A toxic friendship may hurt you every week, but at least it feels familiar. A destructive habit may slowly weaken your spirit, but you know what to expect from it. The unknown feels frightening, so you remain where your soul continues to suffer. Yet, growth has never lived inside comfort. Growth begins the moment you choose temporary discomfort instead of permanent suffering. Notice how much energy is wasted trying to control what cannot be controlled. You replay conversations that already ended. You imagine different outcomes for events that have already happened. You worry about opinions that change every day. You attempt to manage other people's emotions while neglecting your own. This constant effort creates invisible fatigue. Your body rests, but your mind never does. A disciplined mind asks a different question. Instead of asking, how do I make everything around me peaceful? It asks, why do I allow everything around me to enter my mind? These are completely different approaches. One seeks control over the world. The other develops mastery over the self. Only one of them is truly possible. Silence becomes powerful because it protects your energy. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding needs clarification. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Every time you react impulsively, you hand your peace over to external circumstances. Every time you pause, observe, and choose your response wisely, you reclaim your power. Many people believe they lose something when they let go. In reality, they recover something they had forgotten. They recover their attention, their confidence, their time, their emotional freedom, their ability to enjoy simple moments without constantly carrying invisible burdens. Letting go rarely creates emptiness. It creates space. And within that space, wisdom begins to grow. Think about the strongest tree during a storm. It survives not because it controls the wind, but because its roots remain firm. Likewise, inner peace is not built by controlling people, situations, or outcomes. It is built by strengthening your own mind until external chaos no longer determines your inner condition. Life will continue presenting challenges. Difficult people will still exist. Unexpected losses will still happen. But your response becomes different because your foundation has changed. Every attachment quietly asks for your attention. Some deserve it, many do not. Wisdom is learning the difference. If something repeatedly steals your sleep, your confidence, your focus, or your joy without helping you become a better human being, you must ask whether holding on is truly an act of love or simply an act of fear. Fear often disguises itself as loyalty. It convinces you that enduring endless suffering is noble. But peace cannot grow where fear remains in control. The moment you stop chasing approval, people lose the power to manipulate you. The moment you stop fearing rejection, you become impossible to intimidate. The moment you stop expecting permanence from temporary things, disappointment loses much of its strength. This is the quiet freedom that disciplined people experience. Their peace no longer depends on favorable circumstances. Clears because it has become rooted within themselves. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to choose what deserves your attention. Every conversation becomes a chance to protect your energy. Every challenge becomes an invitation to practice inner discipline rather than emotional reaction. Little by little, these daily choices reshape the mind until peace is no longer something you occasionally experience, but something you naturally embody. Many people believe they are tired because they work too much. In reality, they are exhausted because they continue feeding the very things that consume their energy. Every day, they give attention to unnecessary conflicts, toxic conversations, endless comparisons, negative thoughts, and habits that quietly rob them of their strength. Energy is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Once it is spent, it cannot be recovered instantly. This is why wisdom is not only about knowing what deserves your attention, it is also about recognizing what deserves none of it. Imagine carrying a bucket filled with water while someone pokes small holes into it. At first, the loss seems insignificant. A few drops disappear, and you hardly notice. But after enough time, the bucket becomes empty. Your life works in the same way. Rarely does one great tragedy leave you drained. More often, it is the countless small leaks you ignore every single day. A complaint here, an unnecessary argument there. Hours spent worrying about the future, constant scrolling through other people's lives, seeking approval from those who never intended to understand you. None of these seem dangerous alone, yet, together they leave you emotionally empty. Your attention is like fertile soil. Whatever you continue watering will grow. If you feed fear, fear becomes stronger. If you feed resentment, resentment begins shaping your personality. Clears. If you feed anxiety, your mind starts believing that danger exists everywhere. But if you feed discipline, gratitude, patience, and silence, those qualities slowly become your natural character. Every day, without realizing it, you are choosing what grows inside you. The problem is not that negative things exist. They always have, and they always will. The problem is that many people invite them into their minds and offer them a permanent home. A single criticism stays in their thoughts for weeks. One rejection becomes proof that they are not enough. One disappointment convinces them to stop believing in themselves. The external event lasts only a moment, but the mind continues feeding it long after it has passed. Observe how fire behaves. A fire cannot continue burning without fuel. Remove the wood, and eventually, the flames disappear. The same principle applies to emotional suffering. Anger requires your repeated thoughts. Worry requires your constant imagination. Bitterness survives because you continue replaying painful memories. When you stop supplying these emotions with your attention, they begin losing their stop feeding what constantly drains your energy power. You do not fight them. You simply stop feeding them. Many people wake up and immediately begin consuming negativity. Before the sun has fully risen, they check their phones, compare themselves to strangers, absorb bad news, respond to stressful messages, and fill their minds with distractions. Then they wonder why they feel anxious before the day has even begun. Clears. Your morning is the doorway to your mental state. Whatever enters first often shapes everything that follows. The disciplined person understands that protecting the mind is as important as protecting the body. Just as you would not willingly eat poisoned food, you should not willingly consume poisonous thoughts. Every conversation you participate in, every environment you remain in, every person you spend time with, and every piece of information you absorb either strengthens your spirit or weakens it. There is no neutral influence. Everything leaves a mark. One of the greatest drains on human energy is the need to prove yourself. Some people spend years trying to convince others that they are intelligent, successful, worthy, or lovable. But no amount of explanation will satisfy someone who has already chosen not to understand you. Every attempt to force acceptance only creates deeper exhaustion. Wisdom teaches that your value does not increase because someone finally recognizes it. A diamond remains valuable even when hidden beneath the earth. Another invisible drain is carrying emotional responsibilities that belong to others. You cannot heal every wounded person. You cannot solve every problem. You cannot rescue people who refuse to help themselves. Compassion is beautiful, but when compassion lacks boundaries, it becomes self-destruction. There is a difference between supporting someone and sacrificing your own peace to carry burdens that were never yours. Notice how trees survive through every season. During autumn, they release their leaves without resistance. They do not cling to what can no longer nourish them. They understand that letting go is necessary for survival. Human beings often do the opposite. They cling to expired friendships, outdated identities, broken expectations, and painful memories, believing that holding on demonstrates strength. Nature quietly teaches the opposite. Survival belongs to those who know when to release. Silence also protects energy. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves your defense. Sometimes your greatest victory is refusing to participate in battles that cannot improve your life. Every unnecessary reaction gives another person access to your emotional world. Every peaceful silence closes that door. Pay attention to how your body responds around certain people. Some conversations leave you inspired, calm, and hopeful. Others leave you tense, frustrated, and mentally exhausted. Your body often recognizes what your mind tries to ignore. Learn to trust that feeling. Energy does not lie. If someone repeatedly leaves you feeling empty despite your best efforts, wisdom asks you to reconsider how much access they should have to your life. The strongest people are not those who endure endless emotional chaos. They are those who become selective about where their energy flows. They know that attention is life itself. Wherever attention goes, life follows. If you constantly invest your energy into problems, your world becomes filled with problems. If you invest your attention into growth, learning, discipline, gratitude, and purpose, your entire experience of life begins to transform. Every evening, ask yourself one simple question. What drained me today? Then ask another. Did it truly deserve my energy? Most of the time, the answer will surprise you. You will discover that many of your greatest burdens were never forced upon you. They were repeatedly accepted through unconscious habits. Awareness becomes the first step toward freedom. When you stop feeding what weakens your spirit, something remarkable begins to happen. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions become steadier. Your decisions become wiser. Your presence becomes calmer. The same world still exists around you, but it no longer controls you, because you have finally learned that peace is protected not by changing everything outside yourself, but by carefully choosing what you allow to live within your mind. Many of the deepest wounds people carry are not caused by those who left. They are caused by refusing to accept that they were meant to leave. One of the hardest lessons in life is understanding that not every person who enters your journey is meant to walk beside you forever. Some arrive to teach you, some arrive to challenge you, some arrive to awaken you, and some simply arrive to show you who you should never become. Wisdom begins the moment you stop measuring love by permanence and start measuring it by purpose. Human beings naturally seek security. We become attached to familiar faces, familiar routines, and familiar relationships because they make us feel safe. But life is movement. Nothing in nature remains exactly the same forever. Seasons change. Rivers continue flowing. Trees release their leaves. Even the sunrise never appears in exactly the same way twice. Yet people often expect relationships, circumstances, and identities to remain unchanged for a lifetime. This expectation becomes the source of unnecessary suffering. Many people spend years trying to keep someone who has already decided to leave emotionally. They continue sending messages that receive no warmth. They continue giving kindness where appreciation no longer exists. They continue sacrificing their peace in the hope that one more effort will change another person's heart. But love cannot survive where only one person continues carrying its weight. A relationship is like a bridge built from both sides. If one side stops building, no amount of work from the other can complete the journey. Acceptance is not giving up. Acceptance is seeing reality without arguing with it. The moment you stop fighting what already is, your mind becomes lighter. Imagine trying to hold water tightly in your hands. The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Relationships work much the same way. The tighter you try to control people, the further they often move from you. Peace comes not from possession, but from appreciation. One of the greatest illusions is believing that someone's departure defines your worth. It does not. People leave for countless reasons that have little to do with your value. Sometimes they outgrow the connection. Sometimes their priorities change. Sometimes they are fighting battles you cannot see. Sometimes they simply choose a different path. Their decision reflects their journey, not your identity. The bamboo teaches and accept that not everyone is meant to stay. Important lesson. During powerful storms, it bends instead of resisting. Because it bends, it survives. Human beings often resist change with all their strength. They refuse to accept endings. They refuse to accept disappointment. They refuse to accept that certain chapters have already closed. This resistance creates more pain than the change itself. Flexibility is not weakness. It is one of the highest forms of inner strength. There are friendships that belong to one season of your life. There are mentors who prepare you for the next chapter and then quietly disappear. There are people who encourage your healing before continuing their own journey. If you insist that every connection must last forever, you may fail to appreciate the purpose it served while it existed. Many continue carrying people long after the relationship has ended. Physically they are gone, but mentally they occupy every quiet moment. Old conversations replay endlessly. Imaginary arguments continue for years. Regrets become daily companions. The body has moved forward, but the mind remains trapped in yesterday. This invisible attachment steals more energy than most people realize. Ask yourself honestly, are you missing the person, or are you missing the version of life you imagine with them? Often people mourn possibilities more than reality. They grieve dreams that never truly existed. They hold on to potential while ignoring what actually happened. Wisdom requires the courage to separate imagination from truth. The disciplined mind does not chase those who repeatedly choose distance. It respects freedom. If clear someone wishes to leave, let them leave without bitterness. If someone wishes to stay, appreciate their presence without clinging to it. Both situations become easier when your happiness is rooted within yourself instead of depending upon another person's choices. This does not mean becoming emotionally cold. It means learning to love without attachment. Love fully, care deeply, support sincerely, but never make another person the foundation of your peace. Foundations built on changing people will always become unstable. Foundations built upon character remain unshaken. Sometimes life removes people because they are no longer aligned with the person you are becoming. What once felt comfortable may now limit your growth. Conversations that once inspired you may now feel empty. Environments that once energized you may now leave you exhausted. Growth often requires separation before transformation becomes possible. Nurture never apologizes for change. Autumn does not ask permission before releasing its leaves. The ocean does not apologize for the changing tide. The moon never remains full simply because someone prefers it that way. Change is woven into the fabric of existence. When you begin accepting this truth, you stop treating every ending as a personal tragedy and begin seeing it as part of life's natural rhythm. Forgiveness becomes easier when you realize that carrying resentment keeps the other person living rent-free within your mind. Whether they remember you or not, your anger continues demanding energy every single day. Forgiveness is not declaring that what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness is choosing to stop carrying a burden that no longer serves your future. There will always be people who misunderstand your silence, question your decisions, or walk away because your path no longer benefits them. Let them go peacefully. Your responsibility is not to convince everyone to remain. Your responsibility is to continue becoming someone whose peace cannot be stolen by another person's absence. Every ending creates empty space. At first, that emptiness feels uncomfortable, but empty space is where new wisdom grows. It is where discipline develops, where self-respect deepens, where purpose becomes clearer, and where inner freedom quietly begins to replace emotional dependence. Those who fear emptiness often rush to fill it with distractions. Those who embrace it discover that solitude can become one of life's greatest teachers. The strongest hearts are not those that never experience loss. They are the hearts that continue loving life without allowing loss to harden them. They understand that every meeting carries the possibility of parting, yet they remain grateful for the time shared instead of becoming imprisoned by the time that ended. In that gratitude, they discover a peace that no departure can ever take away. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not against the world. It is not against difficult people, unexpected hardships, or unfair circumstances. The greatest battle is the one that takes place inside your own mind every single day. Before you can influence your environment, you must first learn to govern your thoughts. A person who cannot control their own mind will spend their entire life trying to control everything else. And that is a battle no one can win. Most people wake up believing their biggest challenge is what waits for them outside. They think the problem is their job, their finances, their relationships, or society. But if you observe carefully, you will notice that two people can experience the same situation and respond in completely different ways. One becomes overwhelmed, while the other remains calm. One sees only obstacles, while the other finds opportunities. The difference is not the world they live in. The difference is the mind they have trained. Your mind is like a wild horse, left without discipline. It runs wherever fear, anger, desire, or distraction lead it. It chases every opinion. It reacts to every insult. It worries about every uncertainty. It never rests because it has never been taught how. But when the mind is trained with patience and awareness, it becomes your greatest ally instead of your greatest enemy. Many people spend years trying to change other people. They want others to speak differently, behave differently, understand them better, or finally appreciate them. This endless effort drains enormous amounts of emotional energy because it focuses on something that has never been fully within your control. Wisdom begins when you shift your attention from changing others to changing yourself. That is the only place where real transformation begins. Think of a mirror covered with dust. No matter how beautiful the world outside is, the reflection remains unclear until the mirror itself is cleaned. Your mind works the same way. If it is clouded by resentment, fear, pride, comparison, or constant distraction, you will interpret everything through that distorted lens. The world may not be attacking you. Your own untrained mind may simply be convincing you that it is. One of the strongest habits you can develop is the ability to pause before reacting. Most people react automatically. Someone criticizes them, and anger immediately appears. Someone ignores them, and discipline your mind before you try to change the world. Insecurity begins speaking. Something unexpected happens, and panic takes control. Between every event and every reaction, however, there is a small space. Within that space lives your freedom. The disciplined person expands that space. Instead of reacting emotionally, they observe first. Observation weakens impulsiveness. Awareness creates choice. Silence becomes one of the greatest forms of mental discipline. Many people believe silence is weakness because it does not fight back immediately. But silence often requires greater strength than speaking. Anyone can argue. Anyone can defend themselves endlessly. Few people possess enough inner control to remain peaceful when their ego demands a response. Not every battle deserves your attention. Sometimes, the highest form of wisdom is allowing unnecessary conflict to end without your participation. The mind also has a habit of creating suffering that does not yet exist. It imagines future failures before they happen. It replays old mistakes as though reliving them could somehow change the past. It compares your life with people whose struggles remain invisible. In doing so, it creates emotional pain from thoughts rather than reality. Most suffering begins long before the event itself ever arrives. Look at a mountain. Storms strike it year after year. Wind, rain, snow, and sunlight constantly change around it. Yet the mountain remains where it is. It does not argue with the weather. It does not complain about the seasons. It simply stands firm. This is the quality your mind must develop. External conditions will always change. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Opportunities will appear and disappear. But if your inner foundation is stable, these changes no longer shake your peace. Discipline is often misunderstood as forcing yourself to work harder. True discipline begins much earlier. It begins with disciplining your attention. Where does your mind go when nothing demands it? Does it immediately search for distractions? Does it replay worries? Does it seek validation? Or does it return to stillness? Whatever your mind repeatedly practices eventually becomes your character. Every thought you repeatedly entertain builds a pathway within your mind. If you constantly practice gratitude, gratitude becomes easier. If you constantly practice patience, patience becomes natural. If you repeatedly choose anger, anger becomes automatic. Character is nothing more than repeated mental habits strengthened over time. Clears. You become what you consistently rehearse internally. Many people wait for motivation before changing their lives, but motivation is temporary. Discipline remains when emotion disappears. There will be mornings when you do not feel peaceful. There will be days when frustration visits your mind. Discipline reminds you that feelings do not always deserve obedience. You are allowed to experience an emotion without becoming controlled by it. Observe the archer. Before releasing an arrow, their focus is entirely on the target. They are not distracted by the audience, the wind, or the opinions surrounding them. If their attention constantly wandered, the arrow would never reach its destination. Your life follows the same principle. Every distraction weakens your direction. Every unnecessary attachment steals part of your focus. A disciplined mind protects its aim. Another important lesson is learning not to believe every thought that appears. Thoughts are visitors, not commands. Just because your mind says you are not good enough does not make it true. Just because fear predicts failure does not mean failure is coming. Wisdom comes from observing thoughts instead of immediately identifying with them. You are the observer of your mind, not its prisoner. When criticism comes, examine it calmly. If it is true, use it to grow. If it is false, allow it to pass like wind through the trees. Neither praise nor criticism should determine your identity. Both belong to other people's perspectives. Your character belongs to your own actions. Every sunrise offers another opportunity to train the mind. Each moment of awareness strengthens your ability to remain centered despite chaos. Every time you choose patience over impulse, silence over unnecessary conflict, gratitude over complaint, and purpose over distraction, you quietly build an inner fortress that no external storm can easily break. A disciplined mind does not eliminate life's difficulties, but it transforms the way you walk through them until peace becomes your natural response rather than a rare exception. Every person desires strength, yet very few understand where true strength is born. Most believe strength comes from holding on to people, possessions, status, comfort, and certainty. Truth, they fear that letting go will leave them empty, vulnerable, or alone. But life quietly teaches the opposite lesson. Clears throat. The strongest tree is not the one carrying every dead branch. The strongest tree is the one that allows what no longer serves it to fall away. In the same way, detachment is not loss. It is the beginning of real strength. Many people spend years carrying invisible burdens. They carry old failures that no longer define them. They carry words spoken by someone years ago. They carry guilt over decisions that cannot be changed. They carry expectations placed upon them by family, society, and strangers. Every burden adds weight to the spirit. Eventually, they become so accustomed to carrying this weight that they mistake exhaustion for normal life. They no longer remember what emotional freedom feels like. Strength is not measured by how much pain you can endure. Strength is measured by your ability to release unnecessary suffering. There is wisdom in asking yourself a simple question. Is this burden helping me become a better person? If the answer is no, then why continue carrying it? Many people continue because familiarity feels safer than freedom. Even painful habits become comfortable after enough time. Imagine climbing a mountain while carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Every step becomes more difficult, not because the mountain is impossible, but because of the weight you refuse to leave behind. Life works the same way. Your future may not be as difficult as it seems. It only feels impossible because you insist on bringing yesterday with you. Old resentments, old disappointments, old fears, and old identities quietly slow every step forward. One of the greatest acts of courage is accepting that you do not need to carry everything. You do not need every argument to end in your favor. You do not need everyone to understand your journey. You do not need to explain every decision. You do not need to fix every broken relationship. Freedom begins the moment you realize that many battles were never yours to fight. The eagle offers a powerful lesson. It flies higher than most birds, not because it possesses unlimited detachment creates. It flies where true strength grows strength, but because it avoids unnecessary weight. While smaller birds often become